Facebook. Hello. I'm wearing my Jewish cat lady glasses. Yes, I get it. Annoying. I look like Gladys Kravitz with these on. Welcome to Comic Spot, you guys. Come on in and have a seat. Doesn't matter where you sit. It's not like a wedding. If you're Chipp's fans, you can sit with Linda's fans. If you're friends and not fans, it doesn't matter. Just have a seat. Sit close. Comedy's better when we're close. Comic Spot was developed so this Army veteran can interview veterans of comedy like this guy over here, Chipp Jones. Let me read you his bio. He's waving at you. Chipp Jones, smart guy in a fat guy's body. He's located out of Washington, D.C. His take on topical news, Black life, and family has brought laughter to people on the East Coast. I don't know how to read yet. On the East Coast, on the East Coast, from SUNY colleges. I think that's Stand Up New York. No, I'm kidding. It's the colleges on the East Coast in upstate New York to Miami, Florida, and all stops in between, you guys. Veteran of comedy. He's performed at Gotham, at Stand Up New York, and Caroline's in the Big Apple, the Music Box in the Borgata Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey, as well as Wisecrackers comedy clubs throughout Pennsylvania, performing with comedians such as Dave Attell, hello, Joey Cola, OMG, Tony Woods, Matt Kazam, and Al Goodwin. Bring extra pair of undies when you go to hear him. You just might wet your pants. Welcome to this little tiny stage.
Thank you.
This amazing talent, Chipp Jones. Yay!
Hey,
Chipp's here.
hello,
in the
everyone.
House. He's in the house, you guys. We got him. What's going on in DC?
Oh, everyone's still enjoying the COVID,
Yes.
hunkering down at home, That's,
Yes.
That's what I've been doing.
So,
I tell people that I'm trying to spend some time working on me, trying to be a better person. It's like most comedians, I have issues. In fact, the other day, I found out that I have terrible road rage. This bird pooped on my window, and I followed him back to his nest and peed in it. So I need to work on that.
that's awesome. Getting even with the birds. This life is for the birds right now anyway.
This is true.
Yes. Tell me about your life, by the way. Where'd you grow up? How'd you become funny? And
well,
why?
I was actually born in Washington D.C., but at the age of 3, we moved to Brooklyn, New York, because my dad got his residency at Kings County Hospital.
Wow.
And so I was in Brooklyn, New York until the 4th grade. When my parents split up, my mom moved us to Memphis, Tennessee.
Whoa.
So I actually consider Memphis my home because that's where I went through elementary school and high school and my first year of college. And then after that, I moved out to California, went to UCLA, and then I moved back to Washington, D.C. to help my mom move from Memphis back to Washington, which was her hometown, and wound up staying. So that's,
Wow.
so I went full circle, started in
You
D.C.
did.
and came all the way back.
Oh my gosh. So, what would you say in a comedy kind of way would be the difference between DC and Nashville? Did you say Nashville, Tennessee? Memphis, Tennessee. What's the major difference in a funny way between those two cities?
Between Memphis and DC.
Like how are the people different? What jokes don't work? How are the clubs different? Anything?
Well, I never really did comedy in Memphis, which is interesting.
Wow.
I've never performed there. It is, and it's the heart of the Bible Belt, so it's a little, I think it's a little more closed in on the material that you can get away with. Memphis is Memphis is, like the South, where they think being overweight is a genetic issue, but being gay is by choice. So that's that's I think is one of the big differences than Washington. And DC is a great place for comedy because it's like a little hothouse. It's interesting enough, the population is almost exactly the same size as Memphis,
What?
but yeah, it's just about 1 million people. If you count the suburb, it's like 1 million too. But DC has all of the big town amenities because it's like, the the capital of the United States. So it sort of has sort of the big time New York, Chicago uh, stuff, even though it's really a small town. And because you have people that come to DC from all over the country and all over the world, um, your humor has to be translatable. You can't just do sort of Southern humor or regional humor. You've got to be able to cater to an audience that's very diverse.
Wow.
So I think that's why we have so many people that have come out of DC like Wanda Sykes, Patton Oswalt, Lewis Black, you know, uh, Dave Chappelle, you know. So it's a good test ground for comedians.
Yes. I know that, like in Sacramento, California, I brag about that comedy scene so much because when I was over at Harvey's Comedy Club in Portland, Oregon,
Hmm.
any comic that came through from Sacramento, you knew they were going to kill, and it's probably the same with DC because you have
Right,
to be able to relate to everybody who travels there.
right.
And then you
Yeah,
probably got the uppity scale of the politicians and the upper crust
right. And
financial.
and and there are people that work and the people that work for them that work on the Hill and stuff. There's an
Yeah,
interesting hole in this comic scene though. DC does not like puns. I don't know what it is, but it's like
that's a pain.
crowds
That's,
just really not go for that.
in the
Unless it's a special pun show where the pun people come out for it. But regular DC crowds, they just don't seem to like that.
I've noticed in the comedy world, I don't know if you've noticed it too, Chip, but a lot of comics that think that puns are just wordplay,
Hmm.
and they're like the lower on end of the spectrum, the lowest amoeba form of comedy, like, oh, not a pun.
Right.
I think deep down everybody loves to hate a good pun though. They just don't want
Yeah.
to come out of the closet that they love to hate them or hate to love
Or
them or
or they're jealous. Like, why didn't I think of that? So
yeah.
it's like,
How are they in DC with dad jokes then?
uh, some of those don't go over well. I think DC is smack dab in what I call the modern comedy, where people are looking for basically a point of view. They're looking for Toto in The Wizard of Oz. They want someone who can pull back the curtain and show you something that you've never realized was there with a comic pen, and that
Oh,
comes from a point of view as opposed to anything. It used to be in the days of old, a joke was a joke and anybody could tell that joke. Now jokes are more specific to the person telling it. I used
yes.
to love the story of I think it was Milton Berle who used to say, "Yeah, I was at the comedy club and the young comedians were telling these jokes that were so funny that I dropped my pencil when I was writing them down to steal." So you can't do that these days because jokes are so specific to the person telling the joke, you know. And
Yes,
I think audiences like that.
I think so too. I once did comedy in Vancouver, Washington for a group of veterans, and I told jokes specific from my life, which is the hip thing in comedy.
Hmm.
And they told the boss there that they didn't want me to come back. I was just talking about myself. And I talked them into letting me come back 5 more times. And every time I'd go back and try an entirely different type of comedy,
Hmm.
you know, I and I kept changing it every week, and they never did come back from the dead on me. That first week, they were like, "We just don't like that."
sometimes you lose an audience and you can't get them back, you know. But
About-
you keep trying because as I tell other comedians, it's like, you know, anytime in a set you think you've lost the audience, you haven't lost them until you give up. So you never know. You can always turn it around.
There you go. That's it. Well, tell me about when it was you started getting on into comedy and why.
Funny enough, I got into comedy because my wife bought me a comedy class at the Improv for our wedding anniversary. And
Which
so,
wedding anniversary was that?
well, see, now I have to think back because if I get this wrong and she sees this, then I'll be in a lot of
Never
trouble.
mind. It was
So,
like early on in your career with her.
no, it was basically our 19th, 18th or 19th
That's
anniversary.
close enough. You
Yeah,
know?
I'm thinking back because what happened is I she got it for me as a present, and I started to do the class, and then she started to have these things called olfactory hallucinations. That she started to smell things that weren't there,
Wow.
and that sent us on a road of what they call a differential diagnosis to basically find out she had a brain tumor.
Oh my Lord.
I know, and during that whole time, she kept pushing me to keep doing the comedy class because she wanted me to come home and tell her jokes. And so during that process of doing the class, uh, we diagnosed a brain tumor. She actually had surgery to remove the brain tumor, and she recovered in time for us to actually go to my graduation uh, for the improv for the comedy class, and I did 12 minutes on my wife having a brain tumor.
Wow.
so
And
so comedy has been threaded through our life since then.
how is she doing with the brain tumor
She's
scenario?
fine. She has very few deficits, and you know there's stuff that I expected we would run into anyhow. You know, she doesn't know sometimes where she put her glasses, but that happens to everyone.
It does.
But she during that time she was executive producer of a talk show on NPR, and she continued doing that for 10 years after that. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's how I got into comedy through fire.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you went and graduated and you did the 12 minutes, did you say it was at the
hmm
graduation show?
Yep.
So how nervous were you before and how did your graduation show go?
Graduation show went well, and in fact, the video of it sort of got around, and some cancer websites actually posted it.
Nice.
so
Oh, great.
uh, I think I was probably not nervous because, in retrospect, its comparison to what we had just gone through with the brain tumor, it seemed easy as pie. So had that not happened, I might have been more nervous doing comedy, but you know,
Yeah.
it was sort of a step down in anxiety.
So when you did the 12 minutes and she was there and she was a brain cancer patient at the
Mm,
time,
well, recovered.
she
She had
had
recovered from
totally
the surgery,
recovered at that time.
totally removed, totally recovered, and
She just loved comedy and liked to have
yep,
you come home, and that's why you went through the class to keep her laughing.
yep, because we needed laughs during that situation.
How
So
did she like your set?
she loved it. In fact, she was the impetus of getting it on those cancer websites because there were sites that she had been
Nice.
doing research, and they had, at that time, before Zoom, it was the only way to sort of connect with other people who were going through your same experience. So,
That's awesome that she did that. It's great when you have a spouse that's supportive like that. And that's far more than supportive. I think if you never get the correct anniversary, you should get a pass
yes.
from
Well,
her.
I tell that's another one of sort of a comedy bits. I tell young men that when you get into a relationship like marriage or you move in with somebody, that you should always have a safety present hidden somewhere in the house because you're always going to forget something. Well, early on you're going to forget that 3 year, 4 month anniversary that your girlfriend's so excited about. So always have a present stashed, and always have a card because women like cards.
We
But
do.
make sure it's not used because I remember once giving my wife a card when she opened it up. It said Happy Kwanzaa, and I knew, whoops, that was not supposed to go to her.
You had some splaining to do.
Exactly.
Talk to me, please, about working with Dave Attell and many others like Joey Cola and Mr. Kazam.
Kazam. Um, you know what I find?
Dave Attell first.
Oh, David Tell was in Stand Up New York, so that was actually a show. They were with him closing, and there were three or four of us that were doing basically 10 minutes in front of him, which is quite common in the New York club scene that you can get on these shows. Uh, and I didn't get to spend much time with him. He was very nice to all of us backstage, but I didn't really spend that much time with him. I spent more time with Joey Cola at the Borgata, and I'm still good friends with him on Facebook. And I've gotten in connected with the Wisecrackers in Pennsylvania actually through him. So he actually got me connected to a series of comedy shows. And I don't know if most people in the New York area know him for his stand up, but what they throughout
They
the
do.
country, you know, throughout the country, some people know him, but he's best known as behind the scenes. You know, he's the warm up comic for Ellen DeGeneres' crowd, which he's been doing for years, and he is a very funny guy. And if you
Absolutely.
search him out on the web, he's been doing some Zoom comedy shows from his house, which have been hilarious.
I, I heard of him long ago, and I've been watching him, and I'm so excited that he is warm up for Ellen DeGeneres. What an amazing thing that is for him.
Hmm.
Amazing, amazing. So, what's I keep these interviews short, but
Hmm.
once you make it through without dying, and you're a graduate of the comic spot, then you get to come back and plug something once a month.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that bad that you get kicked off in 10 or 15 minutes. So you get to come back once a month and something that you want promoted. But I would like to know from your point of view, what is the best thing you've learned in comedy that you never thought you were going to learn, or the best person you got to meet, or the most amazing moment you ever had in a club or on what's a great big thing in your comedy life you'll never forget happened?
Well, I mean, it's again, it goes back to the show with Joey Cola at the Borgata. The music box holds 1,000 people, so that was the first time I've ever performed in a room that large. I think the actual crowd was about 800, and I have yet to feel that kind of feeling when you can make 800 people laugh. It
Gosh,
is it. Uh, it's a wave of love that's likened to my marriage and my first child. Of course,
absolutely,
they rank higher, but it's on that order. To
absolutely.
feel that kind of connection with that many people all at once.
Where you're appreciated and your comedies love you. When they're laughing, you feel the love coming back to you.
Right. But it's also it's the camaraderie because you are saying this because you found it funny, and to have them also feel it funny as well, you feel connected to them. It's like
Yes,
hanging out with your friends, that you've known for your whole life. There's that connection. It's almost a shorthand speak. That you have similar tastes and desires and views on life. So it feels like
absolutely.
that.
Well, I'm going to need to cut this short just because where I live, I can't have Wi Fi. So I pay literally by the minute for this.
Oh,
So I
wow.
have to budget it out so it lasts all month long. But that's why I say come back every month for 5 minutes and plug something.
Okay,
I
I can
got
do
5 minute spots for everybody, but the
that.
15, 20 hour long ones, they're hard to come by.
We can do that. Thank you
Thank
for
you
having me.
so. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's been my pleasure, my honor to have you. Is that the right way to say it? I'm so honored you came on my show. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you.
much. This is
All right.
Chipp Jones. How can we follow you on the internet to boost your numbers, Chipp?
Well, I'm at Chip J, ChIppJ, on Twitter. I'm Chipp Jones, ChipJones on Facebook and Instagram,
Okay.
and that's where you can find me.
You got it. I'll put
Yep.
it on the post. And if I make any typos, just let me know. And this is just going to be today. It's going to be the non-professional version, just the video. But in a couple, 2-3 days, the pro version will come out, and I'll send it to you by private messenger. And if you
Okay.
will share that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Love to.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest of
See
the
you
day.
later. Follow him, Chipp
Bye bye.
Jones. Bye.
Every